This is something a lot of people don't do. They don't think about like, okay, worst case scenario of change, all this stuff could happen, but a lot of people don't think about what's the worst case scenario of stagnancy. And change makes things difficult at the beginning, but it's really amazing in the long run. Whereas things that are easier, it becomes really soul-sucking. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Alexis. I do videos all about productivity and personal development. So today is day 5 on the Change Your Life Challenge. I'll have the playlist linked in the description box if you'd like to catch up, past videos, future videos. And this PDF that you see here on my iPad will also be linked. So it's free. It'll just be in the description box so you can follow along, download it on your iPad, print it off, copy it down into a bullet journal, whatever you want to do. So this is 2 pages today. The first page is on external fear. So there's kind of a quadrant right here. And so what you're going to write down in this matrix is if you do the thing, if you don't do the thing, the worst case scenario, and the best case scenario. So there's probably something that is really exciting to you that you want to embark on, probably part of your life's work, which we talked a lot about in day 2. And it seems exciting, it seems scary. But there's probably a lot of fears involved in that. Like, what if I don't have health insurance? Or what if money doesn't work out? Or there's lots of different fears. What you're going to actually do is journal. How does this worst case scenario actually play out? So part of this idea came from a few different places, but one place you can look is, I will link in the description box, but Tim Ferriss has like a 13 question really diving into fear exercise. So if you're really interested in kind of this worst case scenario of if you do it box, there's 13 questions where you can really dive into that. But so what I want you to do is just kind of like journal. If I start doing music, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Okay, maybe I won't have health insurance and this bad thing happens and then da-da-da-da-da-da. If I don't do it, worst case scenario, and this is something a lot of people don't do. They don't think about like, okay, worst case scenario of change, all this stuff could happen, but a lot of people don't think about what's the worst case scenario of stagnancy. And a lot of times the worst case scenario of stagnancy is depression, feeling regret, feeling like I never did the thing, feeling like I'm not a brave person, feeling like I just get weaker and weaker and more bitter and more jaded throughout my life. And a lot of times emotionally, when you think about the worst case scenario of not doing it, it gets really hard. So, a lot of times if you look at like 1 year from now, it's not that big of a difference. You're pretty much the same person, whether you do or don't make the decision 1 year from now. But then if you go 5 years from now, it gets different. You go 10 years from now, it gets really different. And so a lot of times the best things require change, and change makes things difficult at the beginning, but it's really amazing in the long run. Whereas things that are easier, usually that's like with stagnancy, to not make a change, just, you're just going to be stagnant, you're not going to grow. And those things are easy at the beginning because you don't have to do anything, you just keep going. But over the long run, it becomes really soul-sucking. So you want to think about, do I want to serve my future self, or do I just want to stay stuck in fear right now? Because I think either situation is going to be difficult. It's just a matter of, do you want a future where you're jaded and bitter, or do you want a present where you're uncomfortable? So they're both difficult, but it's just picking which one you want to deal with, which type of hard do you want. Then if you journal the best case scenario of doing it, a lot of times it's like, wow, the best case scenario is like, I do what I love all the time. Like, maybe I actually really enjoy it. Maybe I become a happier person. Maybe I actually impact some people. Maybe I feel like there's meaning in life. Maybe I feel like I'm happy and joyful. And the emotional difference of the best case scenario of doing it or the worst case scenario of not doing it that we just talked about, being bitter and jaded or being so excited, like there's usually such an extreme difference between those two potentials. And then the best case scenario of not doing it, I think a lot of times the best case scenario of not doing it's like, well, it'd be stable. I'll definitely have, stable job. I won't probably have to worry that much about money, but I'll probably be, I'll keep being tired in the evenings. Like, what it's like. I mean, whatever you're currently doing, pretty much what that best case scenario is. So a lot of times when I've done this exercise and I answer this question from the perspective of 10 years from now, how are things going to be looking? It usually really clears it up. And it's like, yeah, I am afraid of making the change, but if we're kind of measuring fears, I think I'm definitely more afraid of not making the change. So then at the bottom of this, I want you to outline, okay, what are you gonna do? Like, I feel like today's the day that we gotta like launch into this thing. We've planned it. Okay, this is the yearly goal. We've chunked it back. This is where I need to be by the end of the month or whatever. But now today's the day to actually get started on it. So write down like, what's step 1? What's kind of the minimal step you could do? You could sit down at your desk. You could rough draft one song, you know, whatever it is. But write down what's your minimal step one, and then as soon as you're done watching this video, do your minimal step one. Okay, so then onto the second page. So that's what we fear externally. So on the next page, we're going to talk about what we fear internally. And a lot of times internally, what we fear is that we're not good enough. We're just not talented enough. There are some people that are just born with these talents. I definitely wasn't born with one of those. I'm not one of those people that was born with those talents. So I shouldn't even try because I probably can't do it anyways. And I've been reading the book Grit, and it's been such an interesting book. I definitely recommend you read it. And it talks about, in America, we profess that we really value hard work, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But whenever someone achieves something great, actually we attribute it to talent, even though we say that we value hard work and we think that hard work is more important. But actually at the end of the day, we think that it's the talented people when someone achieves something great. And the reason that we do that is because then we're not in competition with them. If it was just a normal person who worked hard and achieved success, then we'd have to confront ourselves and be like, well, I'm a normal person, so I guess the difference between us is I really haven't put my best foot forward. But if we chalk it up to talent, then it kind of takes our responsibility out of the equation. It's like, oh, no, it's just they're talented and I'm not born talented. There's nothing I could do about it. It's not my fault. It's just, you know, that's how it is. And so it's actually a defense mechanism to shield yourself from having to look at the pain of, I haven't been taking action or practicing. So she puts forth kind of a formula. So you're born with a certain level of talent in a certain thing. So it's kind of this potential energy. Now that talent doesn't become anything if you don't put in some effort and actually do something with it. And that becomes a skill that you have. So now you're skilled in the area. So maybe you're just naturally talented with putting words together verbally. That's a talent that you were born with. So, but that never becomes anything if you don't ever put any practice. You got to learn how to read. You have to learn how to write. So you put in some effort with that innate talent that you were given, and that becomes a skill. Now, okay, so you have a skill. You're skilled at reading and writing, and you can put words together in a good way. Now, that doesn't really become an achievement until you put in more effort. So you have to put in effort to have written a book, let's say. So you have to build the skills of reading and writing. Then you build the skills into achievements by doing some more effort. So it's kind of like talent, put in some effort, becomes a skill, put in some more effort, becomes achievement. So she talks about in the book, effort matters twice. So the innate talent that you were born with matters once, but that talent doesn't get turned into skill without effort, and that skill doesn't get turned into achievement without effort. So effort actually counts twice. And she was kind of studied, and actually there's not a big difference for most skills. There's not a huge difference in talent in most people. Most people are kind of innately born with just similar levels of talent. And when you actually study people that excel, a lot of times they had parents who were really interested in these things, and so they really put in a lot of hours, and so by the time they're 15 or 13, they seem like, oh wow, they were just born talented, but really they had parents who mentored them into it, and they had a lot more hours and effort put into something. And one thing like Malcolm Gladwell talks about is kind of the 10,000 hour rule, and you get to mastery once you reach 10,000 hours. So at 40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year, factor in like 2 weeks vacation, that takes 5 years to get to mastery approximately if you're putting in that time. So it's a lot more about effort, it's a lot than it is about talent, and it's a lot more about putting in the hours. And I think a lot of people are resistant to that belief because it challenges you. It makes you have to step outside your comfort zone, actually. And if you just believe that it's all these special talented people, then you never have to get outside the comfort zone, because it's like, oh well, I'm just throw my hands up, I'm not one of those special talented people. So they actually studied a lot of high achievers, like we're talking about like Einstein, Aristotle, we're talking about some big names over the course of history that you've heard about, and what were the common factors and what made them really successful. And so what made them successful was 4 factors, and they kind of lumped them together. So enduring passion is 2 of them. So it's not like, oh, I'm interested in music, and then a couple years later I'm interested in painting, and then a couple years later I'm interested in photography. But they had one enduring passion. They're so passionate about it, so obsessed with it. It doesn't change from year to year. They're just really obsessed with this thing. Because if you don't love the thing, it's hard to keep going if you don't really love the thing, and you want to be like obsessed with it over time. And then the other factor is perseverance. So if you're not good at it, do you give up? If you encounter something new, do you give up? If at first you don't succeed, if you reach your first setback, and how long can you endure with something. And when something's difficult, you get back up. When you make a mistake, you get back up. You fall down, you get back up. And that's called grit. And that's what these successful people all have in common. They set their eyes on this thing, they go after it, and they persevere. And she talks about that grit is malleable throughout your life. It's not like you were born with a certain level of perseverance and you can never change it, but it's very malleable. And if you desire to be someone who is successful, you want to get your life back together, then it's absolutely possible. And it's way more about effort and passion and perseverance than it is about talent or just this innate skill that you have. And a lot of people that you think were really talented just put in tons of hours. So what I want you to kind of write here is what is the thing that I'm enduringly passionate about? And it probably should be your life's work. Like, what is my life's work going to be? Is it, like, when you think about that Venn diagram that we did on day 2, where your envy and heartbreak and anger, it told you like who you want to help and what you want to work on. That is your life's work. And so can you be enduringly passionate about it? Not just for 3 months or a year, but there's your life's work that you're going to stick with. And when it gets hard, you're not going to give up because you love the thing that much. And so journal about it. What is my enduring passion? And then the other thing is journal about the things that tend to make you give up. Like for me, it's like a video doesn't do well. I have a string of videos that don't do well, or analytics are going down, or I think that I'm someone whose perseverance score I don't think is very high. However, over time, I'm trying to grow my patience, my endurance, my perseverance. I'm trying to get that grit score up because I want to be someone who finishes what I start. And so just journal about what are kind of the triggers that would make you give up, or maybe in the past, what's made you give up. And a lot of times it's tied to shame, or it could be tied to a belief that you're just not talented. I sometimes have a belief, like there are all these YouTubers out there and they have this charisma that I don't have. And if I had that charisma, I'd do well, but because I'm not a charismatic person, that I just can't do well. And I'm trying to challenge that belief over time. Like, are there people on YouTube that are not charismatic that have succeeded? Yeah, so it's probably not that. And I have to challenge myself that a lot of these YouTubers I look up to, they've been on here for 7 years and they've probably gotten to that 10,000 hour mark. I was just calculating. I was like, I wonder about what hour mark I'm at. I thought I had estimated. I was like, I've been doing this for about 3 years, so I'm probably, 3/5 of the way there. No, not even close. I'm at like the 700-ish hour mark, I would approximate. So I was like, wow, I'm really just at the beginning stages of this, because when it's a part-time thing, you can't reach the hours quick enough. And so I was like, wow, I guess I just need to give myself some grace. I'm really still a beginner at this when it comes to years. When it comes to not getting started, it's usually fear. The external fear of what could go wrong. The internal fear of, I just can't cut it. I'm not cut out for this. Other people have this special thing and I don't have it. And so I just want you to challenge that. It's not a bunch of special people who are successful. It's really just people who, they were passionate about something and they didn't stop. And so go back to step 1. What was your step 1? And go ahead and get started. I want you to get started on that routine today, that sacred time slot that you picked for yourself. And I want you to show up, start building toward those 10,000 hours, building toward that person who perseveres and has grit, because it's totally malleable. It's not like we're just born with it. So you can, at any point, we can always decide to change. No matter what type of person we've been in the past, it's not too late. We can always change and grow and be the better type of person that we want to be. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. This is day 5. You can click in the description for the playlist, and I'll see you in day 6. Bye.